Hi, this is Drew Tignanelli. This is our June update here with Michael P.
Happy
And
to
Michael,
be here.
how are you?
Doing great. How are you? Well, actually, I just told you my allergies are terrible, but other than that, I'm great.
Oh,
And we got a drought up our way. How about you?
we've had less rain than you would have thought, but we keep getting these little intermittent showers that last a half hour or so, and so
Keep the
forth.
wells
So
full.
keeps coming. It's not overly. That's good. Anyway, Mike, the market's ticked up a little. There's a lot of optimism out there. I'm not necessarily sure that there's overt optimism. What you look for after these downturns like this is you look for those monster moves, and a monster move is when the market goes up a lot, and it does it on really high volume, and the advancing shares really outpaces the declining shares, and the new highs really outpace the new lows. You're not seeing that in this. It doesn't mean the market's going down like a rock in any way, shape, or form. You pointed out just a couple of days ago that the majority of the S&P 500 gain has been just in 5 stocks.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so the market has upticked. There's a lot of the conversation is around the concept that the Fed may stop raising interest rates. Not that they'll go down, but at the very least they'll stop. And I think that's causing a lot of market confidence. Essentially, the word on the street is if they keep increasing rates, we are more likely to have a recession. But if they stop, we might avert it. So that's kind of what people are talking about. But one of the things, Drew, I thought we could talk about today is a lot of our clients look at the news, they look at various websites, and they see these market indices. And as a demonstrator of as far as how is the market or how healthy is the market, and we wanted to go through a couple of them. And you had just mentioned the S&P 500. And one of the things that people I don't think know about the S&P 500 is, yes, it's 500 stocks, but it's not 500 stocks of equal value in equal shares in the indices.
Right.
Each of those 500 stocks is weighted based on their market capitalization. So that's taking the share price times the total amount of shares outstanding. And based on that, that's how much of the indices is made up by you. And 24% of the S&P 500 is made up of 5 stocks. Can you name them?
Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia, and Google, which is Apple, Alphabet, whatever you want to call it.
Google, yeah. And then Google has 2 share classes, but it's still the same company. So yeah, Apple makes up 7.5% of the S&P 500.
Yeah, monster company. The smallest of the 500 companies is tiny compared to Apple by itself. That's why they don't make Apple the same weighting as that one at the very bottom of the S&P 500. And, people hear about the Dow Jones Industrial Average. That's only 30 companies. I mean, come on. And the 5 we just listed in the S&P 500 are 5 of the Dow Jones Industrials. And then the NASDAQ is really just 100 companies that you typically see in the NASDAQ. When they say the NASDAQ's up, it's about 100 companies, which again are pretty much the same companies you just saw in the S&P 500 that are just part of 100 of the 500, so.
Yeah. Well, but to highlight some of the differences there. So, the S&P 500, it operates kind of how we said, and it's essentially daily adjusting its makeup. The Dow Jones is actually price weighted. So, it's just the 30 prominent companies that I think they're just chosen by a committee. So it's not even like a set of, mathematical or scientific method. They're just chosen, and it's just the 30 prices added together. And then the NASDAQ, it operates like the S&P 500, except for annually they go in and rebalance it to lessen the effect of the largest members.
Right. Now, the funny thing is that the Dow Jones Industrial Average was actually created. They had the companies, they added their price together like back in the 1800s, which is quite fascinating. And then when somebody was no longer one of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, they'd have to bring a new company in and mathematically figure out how to bring that company in compared to the ones that they had. And it used to be that you had to be an industrial company. That changed in, I believe, the 1980s when they introduced the first non-industrial company that didn't make an actual hard product like an industrial company would.
Yeah, and the Dow is also all US. And I did say one thing wrong. I said it's the prices, all the share prices added up. There's also a multiplier they use, and that's to take out the effect of price splits, stock splits.
Yeah. And the adjusted companies that they brought into it years and, over the years, because you don't have the same 30 companies in there. Matter of fact, I think there's only one left from the original 30. And I think and I'm not even sure if this is true. I think it was 3M. And I don't even know if they're still part of it anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
General Electric used to be one of the only ones you could name of a couple, but now it's no longer part of the Dow Jones Industrial. Anyway, it's fascinating. You hear these things of these indexes, but it really is a misnomer to some degree. If you just hear the name and try to visualize what it is, it's much more complex and how they operate, or simplistic also at the same time.
And because of the differences, that's partly why you'll see one of them do better on certain days than others. The NASDAQ has a lot more growth lean to it. The S&P is a little bit more balanced between, growth and value companies.
Right. Anyway, they got through the debt ceiling thing. As I kept telling people, look, if the market already knows about it, don't worry about it. The market's already thought about it. Markets are forward thinking, and people kept calling up all concerned about the debt ceiling. But what you always have to think about is it a new thought? Then we need to start worrying about it. If it's something you're hearing in the news week after week after week after week, the market's already thought about it, Mike. It's not worth spending a lot of energy thinking about. Markets are forward thinking, 6 months to a year. Markets right now are moving on what might happen in January and July of 2024. That's what markets are moving on today. Believe it or not. On a daily basis, they go like this. But over periods of time, it's thinking out 2024 now. It's not worrying about what's happening in June of 2023. Unless something totally unusual happens.
So let's put our energy towards our planning topics.
Go ahead. You have your fraud topic. You wanted to.
So it has been increasingly upsetting to me to see people experience these acts of fraud against them. I think what really gets to me about it is the pure cruelty of people who commit these crimes having absolutely no regard for who they're affecting. But that's a bit more philosophical than my role as a financial advisor is. So let's just talk about some of those things that you can do to protect yourself. And passwords is a huge part of it, creating unique passwords. And the biggest thing is don't use the same password for more than one site. The way that these financial crimes are being committed is various companies have data leaks or data hacks, and the people who commit those hacks take that information and bundle it, and then they go onto the dark web and they make it available. And the concept that it runs is if they got your, New York Times login, well, they're going to try it at Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all the major banks, and see, hey, I wonder if they use the same email and the same password at their bank as they did for their, online magazine subscription or whatever it is. So different passwords for different sites. Dashlane is a password manager that we use and really like. And one of the nice things, whether you get it through Dashlane or somewhere else, is dark web monitoring. That's a service where these websites will go out and search the sites that are selling data and look for your information on it and let you know, hey, your Bed Bath & Beyond username and password is being sold out on the internet, so go change that. Also enabling two-factor authentication wherever possible. Last month we announced, and over the past month we implemented two-factor authentication on the financial consulate's portal. So that's quite important. And then monitoring, Drew, you've been telling people for years to monitor their finances. What are some of the things they should do?
Well, you need to freeze your credit reports if you haven't already. If you don't have the websites, how to freeze your credit report, just let your advisor know. They've got the list of them all, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion. I've been freezing my credit since 2006. And if you haven't done yours, you should make sure that tomorrow, the day after you listen to this video, or today, the day you're listening to this video, you freeze your credit reports. It may be a nuisance, but it's one of the best defenses you have from identity theft and so forth. Don't click on links, don't open attachments in emails. Those are the worst things you could do. Even if you think you know who's sending this to you, still don't do it. Call them up and say, hey,
Yep.
Drew, did you send me an attachment? And if so, why do I need to open it up? Did you send me a link? And if so, why should I click on it? And if I get something in from Schwab or Capital One, my credit card or something of that sort, I don't just click on the email. I just go to the site and I say, oh, Schwab's telling me they've got a new bank statement. Don't click on the email they sent me. I'm going to the site, right?
Right.
Because some hacker could have picked up on that Schwab email. Maybe they have their own Schwab accounts and said, hey, if I can duplicate this and make it look like it comes from Schwab, Drew might be dumb enough to click on it. And when he does, he just gave me his Schwab passwords and everything.
So
or he just downloaded a malware on his computer.
So running through a few more things in the monitoring category, you want to make sure that you're looking at your accounts, you're looking at the transactions at least every week. There's also a number of things that if you have failed to monitor, your ability to get back fraudulent charges is reduced because they say, hey, you should have seen this within at least, 60 days or 30 days or something like that. That's not on us that you weren't following along. So monitoring that, getting your credit reports, reviewing those at least annually, and then check your email. Even if you don't click on those links like Drew's saying, make sure you're checking your emails. If you've put an email address in for a financial institution, and that's where they're going to send, hey, things are looking suspicious, can you check on this? It's on you to make sure of those. So that's passwords and monitoring. On the defense side, like Drew said, credit freezes are really important. Asset location can be important. How much money needs to be in the account that your debit card has? Can you just keep that to the minimum that's required? Don't click the link, like Drew said. Make sure your computer is running antivirus and malware protection. A lot of us get lazy because at work, we have our work computers that our company's IT department is making sure that software is up to date and ready and the subscriptions are paid. But you got to make sure if you have a home computer, you're doing the same thing. And then payment method is another one. It is much easier to recover from a fraudulent credit card charge than it is to recover from a fraudulent debit charge or badge or stolen check or some of these other things. So those are all things. And then again, lastly, knowing the red flags, sense of urgency, sense of immediacy, all those different things that critical, must change your password, click here, like all that kind of stuff, just being aware of that. So Drew, I know you've got
Mike, if any of our client listeners are overwhelmed with what we just said about how to protect yourself, just call your advisor and say, hey, I'd like to set a time to just go over some of these things that Mike and Drew were talking about, because I really want to make sure that I'm doing it. And I really can't, in a short period of time, grasp what Mike and Drew were talking about. So can you walk me personally through the things I ought to be doing? That's what we're here for, Mike.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Drew, when we make these, prepare for these videos, a lot of what we put into them is kind of what's happened in our lives or what we've experienced with clients. I was listening to a crime podcast about a fraudster. So that inspired me to talk about ways to protect yourself from fraud. You've been going through a situation yourself that's inspired the next topic.
Yeah, my mother has been having some difficulty. She's 94. So even though this could be life-threatening, I don't know. But I mean, it's a win-win either way. I'd love to have her for many more years, but she lived a good life and she has a great legacy that she leaves behind. You can't expect much more from life than what she's had.
But you could expect more from Medicare.
we could expect more from Medicare. So what I was getting at is that years ago, I told my father not to go on Medicare Advantage, but he did because, you can get more benefits and it's somewhat cheaper. My father didn't need to be cheaper, but he liked cheaper. And Medicare Advantage, you see this on television. Joe Namath does a lot of Medicare Advantage commercials. A lot of other old actors do them, and so forth. And they do. You can get the benefit of Medicare Advantage is you can get lower costs, more benefits out of Medicare Advantage. The detriment to it is that you're ceding control of your medical care for the long term to this organization. They act as a gatekeeper, Mike. They basically decide whether you need this care or not. You don't get to make that decision, they do. So if you say, like my mother, she fell, she broke a little, fractured her femur. She went to the hospital. I mean, they couldn't say no to that because she was hurting and so forth. But now it comes to the rehab. And I say, no, she doesn't need rehab. She's 94 years old. So, we're not gonna rehab her,
So
and we have to fight now to try to get them. Sooner or later, I think we're gonna win, but we have to fight with them for this.
Let me go up high before, and then we'll dial in. So, when first choosing Medicare, you have essentially an initial decision, which is to do normal Medicare, which
original.
is Medicare's original Medicare. So with Medicare Part A, Part B, and then you selecting and paying for Part D. Now, most of the time, you're also then going to go and buy supplemental coverage. So that's the original one. That's what I would call as the normal one. At some point in time, they came up with this idea that insurance companies could say, hey, I'll administer this program and I will give these minimal additional benefits, and I'll include the Part D. I'll put it all in there in one thing, and we'll take care of everything. But here are the things that you're giving up in return. You're going to give up just being able to, you need pre-authorization with Medicare Advantage.
You normally do. Yeah.
In order to have any coverage from them, you have to go to an in-network doctor.
Right.
And, one of the biggest problems that people have with Medicare Advantage is, they're up here in Maryland when they first retire and they first get on Medicare and they say, okay, we'll buy this Medicare Advantage plan from Care First. And then, they're getting older and they go, I think I'm going to have to move closer to my daughter in California. Well, guess what? You might not have doctors of coverage that were from this plan up here in Maryland and in California. You may, but you may not. Or if you like to travel a lot, you might not have coverage somewhere you are. But the benefit is you got a lower premium and some other benefits. The thing is, it's not administered by the government. And a lot of times we say, oh, good, that's a great thing, not administered by the government. But in this case, it's about what to cover for your health care. And now it's a for-profit entity that's making the decisions versus the government who prints money.
Yeah.
So that's really the risk. There is occasions where Medicare Advantage might be the best choice, but the primary reason is because you couldn't afford supplemental insurance or Part D insurance.
Yep. And you said Medicare A, B, and D was original Medicare. You wondered what happened to C. Well, Medicare Advantage is Medicare C. When you're on Medicare C, it means you're on Medicare Advantage, where they bundle the three together, the hospitals, the doctors, and the drugs of original Medicare, and do it all with a for-profit company. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, never been a fan of it for our clients who can normally afford the coverage. But, like you say, if you can't afford it, it could be a very good option. If you need the savings, it could be a good option for you. You just have to understand what you're giving up in lieu of it.
Yeah.
I want to finish up, Mikey, just talk about the book. We published the Financial Physical about 3 months ago. What I'm finding is a really cool thing that's happening is a lot of clients are talking to people about what we do and who we are. And they, and then they're saying, oh, by the way, he wrote a book. It's called The Financial Physical. We'll get you a copy and you can read for yourself what they're all about. And it's really been a great way for clients to testify as to the difference between how the financial consulate operates in other companies. As a matter of fact, any of our listeners or clients that do have somebody that they've been talking to about, talking to the consulate, if they'd like us to send that prospect a copy of the book, just let us know. We've been more than happy. It's only $6. We priced it to sell, and we have copies here that we'd be more than happy to send to somebody. If you just let us know who you want us to send it to, we'll send it to them and say, hey, John and Jane Doe told us that you'd like a copy of the book, The Financial Physical. If you ever want to talk to us, let us know. We'd love to talk to you.
Yep, absolutely.
Nothing more. But I get a lot of great feedback on it, and I think it was written to communicate a message, and I think that message is coming out. So,
absolutely,
I hope you all get The Financial Physical. If you haven't read it yourself, I hope you would. And if you do know somebody that might benefit from the services of the consulate, you want an easy way to communicate that to them, just let us know, and we'll send a copy of The Financial Physical book to them. Anything else, Michael?
No, that's all for me.
All right. And we're a little late on this in June because it's June 5th. We're recording it. We haven't sent it out yet. So hopefully it
Because
goes
you and
up.
I have such extravagant schedules.
You travel the world. I just sit here, Mike. This is Drew Signanelli saying God bless.